A few months ago, I made a series of retrospectives about a vengeful psychopathic billionaire who spends his nights beating up the poor. Not gonna lie, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound quite as cool. But yes, to this day, Batman continues to be one of my favourite characters in all of fiction, and after finishing my Arkham Knight retrospective back in July, I was left with a craving to make more videos centred around the Caped Crusader and his backlog of incredible games. So I figured it's about time that I revisit the Arkham series that I love so much. And I thought I would do what I do best. I thought that I should rank every single Arkham game from worst to best. Personally, I hold all of these games in massive regard. Each one of them deserves mountains of praise in their own right, especially considering their impact on the industry as a whole. So just because I rank a particular game low on this list, I'm by no means calling it terrible. Before we fully get into the video though, it'd really be appreciated if you could hit like, and also if you're new here, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. We are Tokyo drifting through this December daily upload streak, so make sure to hop on for the ride. And without further ado, let's rank the Arkham games. So to the surprise of no one, the black sheep of this series comes out last on the list. But I do think that Arkham Origins deserves more praise than it gets. Origins, being the only game not developed by Rocksteady, is seen by a lot of people as more of a spin-off than a true part of the series, and I don't think that's completely fair. WB Studios did a quality job in recreating the feeling of Rocksteady's entries, with the iconic free-flow combat system making a return in full force, as well as introducing even more of the Dark Knight's incredible rogues gallery, along with bringing back familiar faces. Without a doubt, Troy Baker and Roger Craig Smith don't quite live up to the legendary voice acting of Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, but their interpretations of Bruce and the Joker are still exceptional. And although it was a slight cop-out for WB to use the Joker as the main villain for the third time in a row, the hauntingly gorgeous Carol of the Bells theme just about makes up for that. You could also argue that this was the most interesting Bruce we've seen in the series, a version far younger, far more arrogant, angry and brash than the stoic Dark Knight we see in the later entries, and this is captured in countless perfectly written scenes, most namely his argument with Alfred. The thing about Origins though is that so much of it feels so much more shallow than what came before it. The gameplay for the most part is a complete copy and paste of Arkham City, as is the world, which despite the beautiful winter setting feels completely dead. Then you've got the jarring cutscenes, which at some points can feel like Gmod animations and at other points feel like they're ripped straight from a next-gen console. To be clear, the game is by no means bad. If Origins was released without any of the context of the other Arkham games, it would more than likely be considered one of the best superhero games ever made. However, it lacks the heart, the vision, and the innovative passion that Rocksteady brought time and time again. It always felt far more like Origins was made to satiate Warner Bros. Higher-ups, as opposed to create a truly revolutionary game. And although there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it simply means that it cannot live up to Rocksteady's works. Speaking of which, so if you know anything about me, you know that despite me not playing Arkham Knight until 5 years after release, I absolutely adore the finale to this franchise. Knight, similarly to Origins, is a game that's massively divisive among fans, and I fall into the camp of people that love Rocksteady's last project. First and foremost, this game that released 5 years ago, to me, is still graphically the best looking game of this entire generation. I mean, just look at the rain. Oh my god, the rain. I will never not be turned on by that fucking rain. It's on another level. The Unreal Engine always provided stunning graphics, but Knight took it to an entire new level, and embodied what a next-gen title should be. But of course, graphics aren't everything, and after being taken aback by its beauty, you do begin to uncover plenty of flaws that the early games simply did not have, the biggest of which is of course the Batmobile, an addition that Rocksteady had no qualms about shoving into just about every single mission bar none. And although the Batmobile isn't inherently a terrible mechanic, its presence does often become overwhelming, and worst of all, it clouds what was to me the epitome of the series' gameplay in other aspects, with additions such as Predator mode, new puzzles and challenges, as well as the absolute peak of free-flow combat. And this same issue is carried over to the story, where we see the flaws often overshadow what is at its core arguably the best story in the franchise. Yes, anyone who knew anything about Batman could see the Arkham Knight twist a mile off, and Jason's sudden redemption arc was fairly rushed, but the effect it had on Bruce and how he treated his family, his friends, was perfect. And with the voice of Joker constantly fighting at the back of his mind, we saw the inner conflict of Bruce throughout the series finally become personified, leading to him being forced to sacrifice himself to save Robin, Gordon and Barbara, to give up the cowl so that his image could live on. I don't mean to go into a full narrative analysis here, but I do feel that so much of Arkham Knight's brilliance is often overshadowed. That being said though, those flaws are still very prevalent, and they weigh down what easily could have been Rocksteady's magnum opus. Instead though, we were left with an inconsistent game that had incredible peaks and fairly dire lows, leaving Arkham Knight just short of the mark to match the masterpieces Rocksteady had made prior. I'm not gonna lie, picking between these last two was very tough, because I consider both Arkham Asylum and Arkham City to essentially be on par with each other, both borderline masterpieces, both perfect interpretations of Batman, and both iconic games. But Arkham Asylum comes second, just and no more. This one game redefined an entire genre of games, giving life to superhero games that many thought was impossible, transcending the stereotypes and stigmas around the mediocre licensed games that were so often pumped out. The revolutionary combat system is what everyone goes to first, but everyone has showered that with praise countless times. What's often forgotten about Asylum is its little things, details that added so much to that ever so mentioned feeling of being the Bat. The patient tapes, the Riddler challenges, the Arkham mystery, the hidden room in the Warden's office, the details sprinkled around every corner of the world made the Asylum feel like a haunting presence, a character in itself, and Rocksteady utilised the setting with various platforming and puzzle sequences that spiced up the formula of beating prisoners to a pulp. And then there was the stealth system, as you retreated into the dark to take down your opponents one by one, striking fear into their hearts. Every single mission was handcrafted to be filled with tension, yet still concise and fun. As well as this, the game introduced countless brilliant characters that all feel truly alive and part of this world, which at times makes the game feel like a sequel to the widely beloved animated series of the 90s, especially since Rocksteady brought back the legends that are Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Asylum did what nobody thought was possible, and although its final boss fight is massively lackluster, it by no means takes away from what to me is the best out of comic Batman interpretation that we've ever seen. So if Arkham Asylum's the best interpretation of Batman we've ever seen, how come it's second on this list? Well, despite not having the same perfect atmosphere narratively, Arkham City took everything else Asylum did and built massively on it. Whether it be the free flow combat having countless new abilities, as well as just being more precise, the stealth system being more engaging with a downgraded detective vision and more missions built around it, the world being hugely expanded with the same, if not more details in every corner. Arkham City is an improvement in every way and is exactly what a sequel should be. The game also added a bunch of side missions which go more in depth into the different members of Batman's massive rogues gallery, and every single one is memorable, from the Mad Hatter's hallucinations to the phone calls from Victor Zsasz. Of course, you've also got the brilliant Catwoman levels, the DLC featuring Robin, and the upgraded Riddler trophies and challenges that kept players roaming the city for hours on end. The main story of the game also went above and beyond, with a bunch of interesting subplots all converging on one amazing finale, as Bruce's dynamics with each of his villains are perfectly interweaved, and the character of Batman is focused on far more, with the morality of Bruce's crusades around Gotham being a driving theme throughout the game that eventually leads to Talia being killed in spite of Bruce's best efforts. And then, of course, we get one of the most iconic endings in all of gaming, with the Dark Knight carrying his arch nemesis out of this burning hellhole of a city, an image that no one could have expected going into the game. Arkham City is arguably flawless from top to bottom, the prime example of what a sequel should be, and the masses of praise and adoration it's gotten are more than deserved. And to me, it is the best Batman Arkham game that we have ever seen. But like I said at the start, each one of these games is brilliant in its own right, and I'm sure there's a massive variety of lists out there. So feel free to comment down below and tell me your list. Do you agree with me? Do you massively disagree with me? Let me know. Also, if you did enjoy the video, like I said at the beginning, it would really help me if you could hit like. And if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. Patreon and Twitter links are also in the description. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka FoundedScarab, and I'll see you in the next one.